Hey everyone, welcome back to another powerful episode of Mind Over Masculinity, the podcast where we explore what it truly means to live, and thrive as a man in a world that's constantly changing. I'm your host Avik, and today's episode dives deep into something that every leader, every man faces at some point. It's the pressure to perform without breaking down. Yeah. And today we have a very lovely guest. So I'd love to introduce you. Please welcome Rachael Edmondson-Clarke. So welcome to the show.
Oh, Vic, thank you so much for having me on. I am super excited to be with you today and to meet with you. The movement that you create and the service that you provide across your 20 podcasts, which is just huge, is just incredible in this space. And I've been a fan for a while. And so it's lovely to be on the show with you. Thank you for having me.
It's great to hear from you, Rachel. And dear listeners, before we delve deep into the discussion, I'd quickly love to introduce you with Rachel. So, Rachel is a powerhouse in the leadership psychology and the human performance. So, with over 20 years of experience, she's worked with Fortune 500 companies, the global executives, high growth teams, helping them lead with strength, clarity, and humanity without burning out. Yes. So, a former regional president of the Professional Speaking Association in the UK and Ireland, and she brings a rare combination of neuroscience, behavioral science, and the executive coaching to the table. But what makes her message so powerful is her own story. So, she went from high flying corporate success to collapsing on her office floor from burnout. And that moment changed everything. And today she teaches what she lived, how to build the anti fragile leadership, the kind that doesn't just withstand pressure, but grows stronger because of it. Yeah. So I'll not take much of your time, dear listeners. Rachel, welcome to the show, and I am really an honor to have you here.
Thank you once again. It is a really important topic, and I'm very aware, being a female in this space, and but I do work with an awful lot of men. And as you described, there is often um, an insatiable pressure to perform, particularly for some of the leaders and the teams that I'm working with. They're under this pressure to consistently be performing at their best, be working well together, be growing or
Mm.
improving what's happening from a business perspective. And all the while, it can feel really quite relentless. And there's that quiet question on my mind: how long can I sustain this?
Mm. Exactly. So, um, I mean, I mentioned about that breaking point. So, um, if you can take us back to that day uh, at the work.
Oh, yeah, I can remember it vividly.
Yeah.
Um, so I was in my glass-fronted office and I was preparing to go into the boardroom. And instead of walking out the door, I literally had the stuff under my, like, in my arms, ready to, like, laptop and papers ready to go. And instead of walking out the door, I found myself lying on the floor staring up at the ceiling tiles because I'd collapsed. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe properly in that moment. Uh, and it was really, really frightening because I didn't know what was happening to me. I later realized that I'd had some form of panic attack, and essentially my body had just kind of shut down, and enough was enough. And it wasn't even that the exec meeting was that bad that I was going into. It was actually the result of months, if not years,
Mm.
of disrespecting my body, of feeling guilty for neglecting the most important relationship in my life. Um, and and really believing that the answer to everything was to just keep working harder and harder. And if I could just get through this next project or meet this next milestone, or if I could just get to the weekend, or if I could just get to the next holiday, that actually everything would be okay. I would catch up with myself and, all would be okay. And I didn't wanna let people down, and I cared deeply about the team, the business, the mission, the work that we were doing. And as I said, my answer to it all was keep going and keep working harder. And the answer couldn't be further from the truth, the real answer.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, I'd say that that's a kind of wake up call, and um, even the strongest leaders can crumble when they ignore their own energy. So, um,
Yes. Yes. Yeah,
definitely, it's
absolutely.
true.
And I mean, that was 13 years ago now. So it's now a long time ago.
Mm,
And it set about for me a pivotal point to really rethink and not even to rethink, but I think to listen to myself, my heart, my soul on a whole nother level as to what I was really here to do and the work that I'm here to do. And I didn't know the answer. I really didn't know what the answer was to that. But over the course of about 3 years of sort of following my heart, of taking a step and not knowing if it was in the right direction, but trusting that actually following what was lighting me up, exploring things. I still worked in the corporate world during this time,
mm.
but that one thing led to another. And eventually, it meant that 10 years ago, I started my own coaching, training, leadership development business. And this I now feel is my soul's work, and I love what I do.
Exactly. That's very true. And like one more thing which I love the most is like um, you worked closely with the senior leaders, uh, and many of them are taught that you have to lead through the logic and not the emotions. So, why do you think that emotional energy and the awareness are very, very crucial for the leadership today?
Oh, crucial because people don't think engaged, included, motivated, valued. They feel those things.
Mm,
So, one of the very practical things that I will support leadership, individuals, and teams with is understanding that the feelings are really useful signals, that they tell us how well we're doing. And we've just got to learn to be able to recognize those signals, understand them, and then know what to do with them. And when we can understand that for ourselves, then we can also support others to feel good. And when we lead by how we make others feel, it's like the famous people will forget what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel. And people will do so much more for an organization where they feel valued, included, certain, they've got the clarity, that they've got the autonomy. They will do so much more. And I think the potential that we are leaving on the table for our teams and for ourselves is massive. When we don't understand this and we don't harness this,
mm,
we are leaving so much capacity on the table that we're just not utilizing. So this is huge for performance, for innovation, for creativity, for trust, for cultures, and for individuals' health and well-being as well.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And uh, how can the male leaders tap into that emotional intelligence without kind of feeling like they are losing that authority and the strength?
Mm. And I suppose this is where I come back to that this strength doesn't mean suppression.
Mm,
Emotional intelligence amplifies, it doesn't weaken leadership. And how do we do that? Well, we do that first and foremost by understanding our own feelings and recognizing our own feelings. And I can make this very, very simple, actually. We perhaps talk
Mm.
through it in just a second. Very, very simple about what's happening
Yeah.
with our feelings, what's going on and what's driving that. Very, very simple. Because I think often we feel that it's something we can't control, or there's a reaction, or we don't know how, we're fearful as to how others will react. It's unpredictable potentially. But actually, there's a lot more that we know about this than perhaps
And
we realize. And so the first thing is that we are aware of that for ourselves so that we can help ourselves be in the very best place to be able to deal with
mm,
any external things that are coming at us. It could be something, it could be someone, it could be a combination. But how do we prepare ourselves so that we are in a good space to deal with those things? And then by understanding it and recognizing it in ourselves, we can recognize it then in others too. And also, we can take preventative measures to make sure that other people don't get there in our leadership. So, I mean, I'd be very happy to, in fact, a quick side story, because I've been fascinated around
yeah.
this. What is it that makes people successful, happy, fulfilled? How do we better understand ourselves? For the last 20 years, I've been, kind of healthily obsessed with studying and putting this stuff into practice. And then around about 4 years ago, I was introduced to a company called CHX Performance, and their co-founder is Professor Chris Beatty. He is professor of evolutionary anthropology, cognition, and neuroscience at both Oxford and Kent universities here in the UK. And for 20 years, he's been studying this relationship between mood and emotion and high performance.
Yeah.
And what I got super excited about when I met with Chris was he has a really simple model. He calls it the 4R model. And it essentially explains it all to us. And in the 20 years I've been studying, I haven't come across something that is as simple and as helpful and as useful and as practical as this 4R model.
Got it. And that's such a important point because that vulnerability is not the uh, weakness, but it's actually the presence, and at the same time, it's a power as well. So, um, okay.
Absolutely. And, and I think one of the things with vulnerability is that I think it's easy to forget as leaders. We carry so much
Yeah.
and we can feel like it's all on our shoulders and people are expecting so much of us.
Mm.
But one of the things that's true about us all as human beings is, and let me ask you, like when you help someone else, how does that feel to you?
It's like I feel like my happy hormones just started because
Yeah. Yes.
it gives you that pleasure that okay, at least I did something. Okay, fine, whatever it is, okay, it's fine. I did my part. At least he or she is better, feeling better, or uh, things are settled for him or her. So that feeling is there. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we get a helper's high, don't we? We do get that helper's high. And I think we forget as leaders often that we deny our teams and our peers and the others people that we work with, we deny them the opportunity to feel good in helping us. And so by arriving at a team meeting and saying, and being appropriately vulnerable, perhaps saying, guys,
Yeah.
I had a terrible night's sleep last night. So if I seem confused today, or if I don't maybe just don't make sense, bear with me. Perhaps someone can help me. And you will and that makes the rest of the team feel, it shows you're human, and it makes the rest of the team feel good. And it also gives them permission to ask for support as well
Mm.
when they need it. So you're absolutely right. It is a strength. And I think the world is changing so rapidly that the reality is, as leaders, we don't necessarily have all of the answers, but we can show up, we can be present, we can share our truth, and then we can let that be. And actually, sometimes I think bringing that kind of energy is the very best thing that we can do at the moment with, kind of all of the changes and things that we might be navigating. We might not have the answers,
Yeah,
but we can facilitate that through our questions, through our listening, through the environment, the culture, and, the space that we create.
exactly. Exactly. And also, like, in a world, I mean, which is totally obsessed with the kind of metrics and all, but do you have the leaders connect performance to purpose? So, um, from that perspective, like, how can a leader begin to rediscover their purpose after losing that touch with it? So, what do you say?
Mm. So, one of the things that I will always encourage my clients to do, particularly when I'm first working with them as well,
Mm,
um, is to revisit their values, what's important to them. Now, values are just a generalization of experiences that are important to us.
mm,
And the reality is if you haven't revisited your values in the last 3 to 6 months, please do it.
mm,
Because life can change, and those experiences that are important to us, they can change because the context that so you, COVID and the pandemic changed, shifted things a lot for people in terms of
mm,
what they were valuing the most. And so and we've all got our own personal things and situations that's going on all of the time. So I think those values really act as a North Star, and getting clear on what those values are, even just your top 3 to 5, and having them in some sort of hierarchy and order is super, super, super helpful. And then thinking about, okay, what do I really, really, really want?
mm,
And you might need to break this down into different contexts. So it could be in the context of work and business, or my life's mission, or however my career, or however you describe that. Could be in terms of family or intimate relationships. And I think you start to so I'm trained in NLP, as you'll probably start to recognize from my language. So those well-formed outcomes, and any of the listeners here, can Google well-formed outcomes. I recommend Damon Cart. He's really good for talking about these things and sharing this. But when we have well-formed outcomes that are, expressed in the positive, it's it helps. It's almost like, I think of it like this. If we were doing archery practice and we've got a target, that well-formed outcome is like the target, but it makes it really clear, really focused, and far easier to shoot and to aim at and to get. So, and some of that takes some quiet time. And I say quiet time, space to listen to the whispers inside of us.
yeah.
Because sometimes there are those whispers inside of us that we suppress or that we push down. And it's allowing ourselves to speak to that part of us that maybe
Absolutely.
has been perhaps ignored for a long time.
Exactly. Amazing. Rachel, I mean, this has been such an insightful and grounding conversation, I would say. And here also, I'd love to mention that you have reminded us that the true strength is not about pushing harder, but it's all about becoming wiser. So, uh, for everyone who are listening right now, maybe you'll be listening. Leadership is not just about the results. It's all about the energy, alignment, and emotional clarity. So you cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot inspire others if you are running on the burnout. So, uh, Rachel, if someone wants to connect with you, what will be the great medium to connect?
Oh, the best way to connect with me would be through my website at elevar.co.uk. and Elevar is spelt Ellevar. Otherwise, I love to hang out on LinkedIn, so they can find me there as well.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, what I'll do is I'll put all the links and details into the show notes for your easy reference. And with this hope, this is your host, Avik, and this is Mind Over Masculinity, where we redefine what it means to lead, feel, and thrive as men in the modern world. So, until next time, lead with strength, live with awareness, and remember your energy is your impact. So, thank you so much.
Beautiful.